Attic Mall Studios. This is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 22 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. You ever go someplace and you feel comfortable with the people you're with?
Yes.
You ever go someplace and you don't feel comfortable with the people you're with?
Oh, yes.
And then those people you don't feel comfortable with, you start to talk to them and you start to realize, wow, we come from different backgrounds or whatever made you feel uncomfortable in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And you realize, wow, we're not that different after all. Next thing you know, you've expanded your horizons, right? You've networked with people that you might not have normally networked with. I think we have, as a rule, a tendency to want to like stay, put. You don't want to be veering too far out your comfort zone, right?
Oh, exactly.
The one thing that did it for me when I was a young man was music, because I would chase music. So I'd find myself in concerts where the music itself would attract people from, all different walks of life, all different religions and ethnicities. It was amazing how music brought a lot of people together, And so as a result of that, especially if if I arrived early enough to actually talk to some of the people, that were in the theater or wherever it happened to be. Mm-hmm. Matthew Jackson has studied a little bit about what we're talking about, or we're talking a little bit about what he studied, I should say. He is on the phone. He's got a book called The Human Network, How Your Social Position Determines Your Power, Beliefs, and Behaviors. Matthew is a researcher, a member of the National Academy of Sciences, the William D. Eberl, am I saying that right? Professor of Economics at Stanford University. Matthew, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning, sir.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
When we see stories like this horrible story this morning, the shooting in New Zealand, I mean, and especially when you hear what this guy's reasoning was, that's a perfect example of just going way crazy with why we need to study what you're studying more. Yeah,
I mean, I guess, the current technology means that people can be being influenced in ways that we've never understood before, and it's an extreme example.
But you would think that with Facebook and all these social networks that we would learn that we're not that different from one another. But at the same time, it seems like it's alienating us more than bringing us together like it should be.
Well, as you were pointing out earlier, there's a strong tendency of us to feel more comfortable around people that are similar to ourselves, mm-hmm. and that's sort of overwhelming. We share experiences, we share interests, we can talk about things that are useful for each other, but at the same time, social media now are sort of amplifying that and meaning that even though we can connect with more people and maintain more connections, it also means that we tend to be connecting mostly with people who are very similar to ourselves.
And you talk about the drive, that kind of drive for success, and then on the flip side, you talk about the failures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think part of what happens is, the fact that groups can be completely insulated from each other means that there can be information getting to one group that's not at all getting to another, or there can be norms of behaviors that are completely separate across different groups, and that leads to very different outcomes in terms of access to jobs and the way people behave.
So tell us a little bit of how you were able to research this.
Well, I think the nice thing is that data are much more available these days, and so it's easier to find information about how people are connecting to each other and to study these things. Mm-hmm. And as an economist, I got interested in it because we really want to understand, how does a person decide to go to college, and why is there persistent differences in employment, and these kinds of questions are heavily socially dependent.
Mm-hmm. Larry had a story this morning about how there's a bill in the Senate right now that will require every student and professor at a public university to take this survey and tell everybody, the world, all of their political beliefs. What do you think of that?
That's a state story.
I'm sorry, state of Florida. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of that. So, I mean, so everybody has to take a survey that would require them to reveal their political beliefs. Is that the idea?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
If I can find the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I don't know what that's about. So when you are doing your research, I just want to say something. When I listen to the radio, I mean, I work in radio, but when I'm listening to like the mainstream hosts, like the Rush Limbaughs, etc., I get a different. They paint a different picture of what this society looks like than the one I'm really living in. Do you find that's true? Do you feel like the media, the mainstream media, whether it's radio or TV, paints a different picture? If I look out my window, we work at the mall, so I look out the window and I see couples that are biracial or homosexual. I see everybody. I don't see any big fights going on because of those differences.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is sort of a strong tendency of people to associate with themselves, of people similar to themselves, and that there is some insulation. As you're pointing out, I think the world has probably become more accepting and encouraging of reaching across lines. The sad fact, though, I think, is that when you look at both geographic structures and the social structures that are formed by people themselves, they tend to be more segregated than you would like in terms of giving people access to information and to opportunities.
So do you two perfect examples of social, I guess, integration would be, and I don't mean just racial integration, but just social integration, happens either in the schools or in the churches. And in the churches, it seems to be, we're very segregated in the churches. Obviously, the religious segregation happens in churches, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So that's that's kind of an odd thing in our society, where part of our lives are completely segregated and the rest of our lives are not.
Right. And actually, we did a study where we looked inside high schools and looked at friendships. And so, for instance, one high school we looked at had a little more than 50% white, a little less than 50% black, and then a sprinkling of Hispanics. And the kids, even though the school looked fairly integrated, when you looked at on paper, the close friendships inside that school, people were 15 times more likely to be friends with somebody of their own race. So
is that right?
When you actually look at the social pattern, it's just amazing how split the network was on in terms of who's close friends with whom.
And I've always felt like, and I kind of hinted at this in the beginning, I've always felt like music and maybe sports were two of the things that kind of brought us together. And I'm not going to withdraw that belief. I think it's still true. But I was listening to the audiobook of Bruce Springsteen's memoir, whatever, autobiography, and he had a close friendship with his saxophone player, who was a black guy, Clarence Clemens, who has since passed away. So in his Broadway thing, Bruce is remembering his friend Clarence. But in the book, he says, but as close as we were, we always had that divide because of the different races. So as close as they were and as successful as they were, they still had that same thing, even at that point in their lives.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I mean, I think, people's backgrounds and sort of differences in tradition and experiences can be difficult to overcome.
So
there's strong separating forces.
Does the book help us understand how the future might look as far as our social makeup, and maybe you could expand the conversation to the rest of the world? Is this an American phenomenon?
No, I think actually, if you look around the world right now, you're seeing a very similar kinds of polarization and inequality growth pretty much everywhere you look. So, the Yellow Vest movement in France is one example. What's going on in Hungary and Austria and Italy now. So there's a lot of countries where you're seeing, sort of more of a gulf between the wealthy and the poor, and also that's sort of exacerbated by social media, and the combination is quite volatile.
It's really a fascinating conversation. I wish we had more time to talk. Matthew, thank you for being on the air with us. The book is called The Human Network. How do we get the book? I found that on Amazon, so I know that answer. Is there a website you'd like to direct us to?
I'm sure if you just Google Matthew O. Jackson, you can find my website and lots of information about the book.
All right, very good. Matthew, good luck with it. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.
There's a real Italian bakery in Ocala. They get it from this Italian. The cannolis, the Napoleons, the green puffs, escalairs. Excelente. Just $2.99 each or 4 for $10. How about a hot meatball or sausage and pepper sub? How about a deli sandwich? Oh, I almost forgot. You get a free pizza dough or bread with any $8 order. Call in your order at 352-207-2667 to cut down on the wait time. Open Tuesday through Friday from 11 to 5. This Italian bakery and deli is the real deal. Magnolia Bakery, 1412 North Magnolia, Ocala.
Hi, this is Tish. I've been with the station a long time, and the best part of my job is the nice people I work with. My decades of experience gives me the background to help businesses reach their goals. Whether your business is large or small, before you make your next marketing decision, give me a call. The number is 352-732-8000, or email me at Tisha, T-I-S-H-I-A, at WOCA.com. Working together, we can come up with a marketing plan that works.
AccuSleep offers a safe and effective medical option for those who suffer from sleep disorders of all kinds. AccuSleep makes restoring healthy sleep patterns possible. No medication, no surgery, just good sound sleep. Mend your sleep so you can stop counting sheep. Experience restorative sleep at AccuSleep, the acupuncture sleep clinic in Ocala, by calling 352-615-5566.
America is built and based on liberties and freedoms. Liberty HealthShare brings that to healthcare. The liberty of choosing your own doctor, the liberty of choosing your own hospital. Liberty HealthShare makes healthcare affordable to millions of Americans. Light your liberty, starting at $199 for a single, $399 for a couple. And no matter how big the family, only $529. That's $529 for the entire family. To find out how you can save, go to lightyourliberty.com. That's lightyourliberty.com.
Here are today's headlines from the source, WOCA. A 69-year-old woman has died from injuries sustained in a 3-vehicle accident on East State Road 40 yesterday at the intersection of Northeast 231st Avenue in the Ocala National Forest. A report from the Florida Highway Patrol identifies the deceased woman as Barbara Margaret. Margaret was driving a 3-wheeled motorcycle heading east on State Road 40. Behind her was a Ford Focus, which rear-ended the motorcycle, pushing it into oncoming traffic where it collided with a Buick Enclave. Margaret was thrown from her trike and died at the scene. Troopers said none of the other people involved in the crash had to be transported to a hospital. Florida's senators disagree on President Trump's declaration of an emergency at the southern border. Senator Rick Scott says he does not mind Republican senators like Marco Rubio, who voted for a resolution ending the emergency declaration.